Hi, everyone. Oh, no, that's not what I want. How's everyone doing out there? Yoink. Surprise! Jenny and Julie are here.
Hi, everybody.
Start with a song. When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. No, I won't be afraid. No, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. So darling, darling, stand by me. Whoa, stand by me. Oh, stand now. Stand by me. Stand by me. If the sky that we look upon should tumble and fall, or the mountains should crumble to the sea, I won't cry, no, I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me. So darling, darling, stand by me. Whoa, stand by me. Oh, stand now. Stand by me. Stand by me. So darling, darling, stand by me. Whoa, stand by me. Oh, stand now. Stand by me. Stand by me. Whenever you're in trouble, won't you stand by me? Whoa, stand by me. Oh, stand now. Stand by me. Stand by me. Hello, welcome, good evening. Welcome to Change Starts in the States, an auction and evening variety show for the benefit of the Future Now Fund, which fundraises and directs giving to flip state legislatures from red to blue, so that we can make change at the most pragmatic level of government in the fastest way with the most bang for your buck. Yeah, we've got a lovely evening in store for you this evening. DJ Shiftee is here. He'll be here shortly. Miles Francis, Jo Firestone, Davy Boi, myself, and also Daniel Squadron and Melissa Walker from Future Now Fund. And this evening is brought to you by a group called the Riveters, which are a giving circle that fundraises for Future Now Fund. You'll be hearing from members of the Riveters about why they care about fundraising to flip state legislatures, and the state legislature that we are raising money to flip, which we shall be flipping in November, is Arizona. So we'll be talking a little bit about Arizona and things of that nature. There's also an auction going on. There's an auction going on right now. The bidding ends in 1 hour and 18 minutes. You can go in the chat. There's a link to it. It's 32auctions.com/the-riveters, and there's many beautiful things you can bid on there. You can bid on music from me. You can bid on a kombucha starter. You can bid on some, anyway, we'll just be talking about them all night. But first, if he's here, if he's over If live from Beverly Road of Kensington, DJ Shiftee. DJ Shiftee, ladies and gentlemen. If he is take it away, Shiftee.
Arrest the killers of Breonna Taylor. All of y'all who think we need more evidence, you goofy. I said arrest the killers of Breonna Taylor. And Elijah McClain too. Y'all hold that boy. Arrest the killers of Breonna Taylor. All of y'all who think we need more evidence, you goofy. I said arrest the killers of Breonna Taylor. You catch the vibe? I'll get off my page. What's up? Future now. What's up? 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 Future now. What's up? Future now. What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? Future now. What's up? Future now. What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? Future now. What's up? Future now. What's up? The killers of Breonna Taylor. All of y'all who think we need more evidence, you goofy. I said arrest the killers of Breonna Taylor. And Elijah McClain too. Y'all hold that boy.
Need to unmute myself. That was amazing. Thank you. Thanks, DJ Shiftee, Uncle Sam. Thank you, everyone, so much for coming tonight and sharing your evening with us. DJ Shiftee is going to be back later with another set, so stay tuned for that. And you can win a DJ lesson from him in the auction. So check that out, too. The link is in the chat. For those who don't know me, I'm Jenny. And if you've tuned into this event, you are probably either my close personal friend or a fan or friend of someone who's performing tonight, or someone who is a freak for state legislative elections, or an overlapping combination of those three things. But I want to say a very special welcome to all of you, because whatever the reason you're here, I love you for it. And I'm here because I want to harness the power of a community like this to make our country better concretely, systematically, and then see the receipts. So it turns out that quarantine was a really good time to get activated. It's required a lot of us to just sit and look around at how truly fucked everything is, has always been, and really stew on that. And now with the explosion of the Black Lives Matter movement, everything has come into hyper focus. And there is this fire to dig in and have a political impact that goes beyond each of our individual votes alone. And luckily, that is what this night is about. So I am one of the leaders of a giving circle called the Riveters. We're kind of like a bunch of kids standing on each other's shoulders in a trench coat to look like a political player. And we work to change across the board in the most strategic way possible who makes the laws in this country and whether they're working in the interest of everyone. So Republicans have known for decades that if they controlled the states, they could capture power on the federal level. But not only that, states are the last line of defense against the judiciary. They legislate gun control, criminal justice, climate policy, and the right to choose. They decide who gets to vote. They decide where the next generation of progressive leaders are cultivated, like Obama, Stacey Abrams, Charles Booker, and they are historically neglected by Democrats, and they're freaking cheap. It's often cheaper to flip an entire state chamber than a single congressional seat. So that oversight has put us in the position that we're in today, where we lost 1,000 state officials under Obama, where states are designing anti-abortion bills for the specific purpose of challenging Roe v. Wade in the Supreme Court, where private prison companies are laundering bills into Republican legislatures in order to fill their prisons with immigrants, and where racist stand-your-ground gun laws are in effect in over half the states in America. But the good news is, our giving circle, the Riveters, is a grassroots answer to this system. And we work under an amazing organization called Future Now Fund. When it comes to being a freak for state legislatures, they are the real ones. No one else is analyzing legislative majorities like them. They ensure that 100% of the money that we raise is going to the best possible places. We get impact reports. We make sure the people we elect have access to legislative support and progressive model bills that they can bring to the floor once elected. We power the campaigns, and we see the system start to change from the inside. So if you've been hurting for a plan, for a concrete way to start building the just, anti-racist society you're envisioning, we are out here and you can be a part of it. That's the beauty of this, is that we take it back together. So tonight is a celebration of this work and an opportunity for everyone watching to learn more about why this is one of the most practical and highly impactful ways you can affect systemic change in 2020. So I will be back to talk about our target state of Arizona in a little while, but first we're going to hear some more music. And while you watch, check out our website, check out our auction. Those links are going to be coming up in the chat, and you can put all your questions there. Any questions you have, we will answer them. We've got Jo Firestone coming up, Davy Boi, Miles Francis, the founder of Future Now Fund, Daniel Squadron, Melissa Walker, the director of Giving Circles at Future Now Fund, and Will Butler. But first, enjoy some music from Riveters member and amazing person and friend, Miles Francis, over in Ridgewood, Queens. Throwing it over to you, Miles.
Hello, thank you, Jenny. My name is Miles Francis, and we're gonna play some music for you. Just want to introduce my band. I want to thank them for coming out. This is Miles here, and Miles in the back. This first song is called "Look Away from Strangers."
Feet of clay, but rash and headstrong I remain. Clear as day, just how to overcompensate. But my neck aches still, and I know the see it lashing out.
Oop. Did my music stop? How about one more time on that? First verse.
No escape
No, okay, this is the second verse. Zoom, baby.
could find to this old comfort zone.
Next time you guys stop playing, I'm fining you $500 each.
It's okay.
You cannot just stop and this is a Zoom. For future now, we said you cannot just stop in the middle. That was like the one thing, the one job. I'm sorry.
But if I could cry, it's worth a try to ask myself, what do you have? What do you give? How do you love? How do you live? Can you do better? I hear a drum, an undertone rising up. Another day. No escape, settle in. It's you and I against them. Would I hold this much anger if I had any will? I talk and talk yet have no communication skills. I never met my neighbors. Too bad they're all alone. I look away from strangers, just fine within my zone. Where's my congratulations? Where's my pat on the back? I've made a few donations. Can you cut me some slack? I look away from strangers. I look away from strangers. I look away from strangers. I am at your service, at your beck and call. I am at your service, giving you my all for you, all for you.
1, 2.
I can be your chaperone, take you to the party and leave you alone. Okay, whatever it takes, whatever it takes. I'll do anything for you. I'll do anything for you. I can be a sous chef, kitchen running smoothly, so you and I stretch.
grateful to be here for Future Now for the Riveters. Arizona, we're coming for you, baby. We're coming. This last tune is called Let Me Cry.
Hand of heart, father of stone, fortified with muscle, stuck in baritone. Glimpses and mirrors, a shell he doesn't recognize, reverberating with calls from a child inside. Let me cry like I did when I was 5, before the well ran dry. Manning up, winning the bread, a pressure cooker coming to a head, indoctrinated against moving his hips, for fear that it could attract another man's lips. Let me cry like I did when I was 5, before the well ran dry. Voice to listen to, left behind in your youth. What kind of man were you before the well ran dry? Yeah, let me cry. Voice to listen to, let me cry. Left behind in your youth. Let me cry. What kind of man were you before the well ran dry? Let me cry. Let me cry. Let me cry.
Thank you, everybody. Sending you all love.
Woo! 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 That was Miles Francis. He's amazing. If there's a better gentleman in Queens, I don't know of him. If the schools are closed, he's available to teach your children. Probably. He probably could. He'd probably do a fine job up to a certain grade. Thank you, Miles. If you see a better Zoom call this year, I'll be shocked. So yeah, here we go. What a freaking start, Shiftee and Miles and Jenny. Lisa Zelznick is throwing links to donate and to bid on the auction in the chat. She also did an insane amount of work putting the whole auction together. So thank you, Lisa, for everything as well. And yeah, the auction, of which Lisa did a ton of work, is going on. There's a really nice Pendleton wool blanket from True Love Always. I'm only saying this because whoever has the high bid outbid me, and I don't want them to win it because I'm mad at them. There's a haircut with Jamie Cook. She is the person that gave me this haircut. We did it with masks on in our backyard. It was amazing. It was a real experience. There's a violin performance by Sarah Neufeld of the Arcade Fire. She's amazing. There's so many things. So yeah, 32auctions.com/riveter. Just click it in the chat. It's amazing. Coming up shortly is Jo Firestone, who I've known since she was 85 years old. She's aging backwards like Benjamin Button. And then when she gets to a certain age, she ages forwards again. It's super amazing. She has so much wisdom from how she's lived her life. Yeah, she's She leaves you speechless. She's one of my favorite comedians in the whole. She's great. Jo Firestone. She will shortly be appearing on your television screen. So, ladies and gentlemen, Jo Firestone.
Thank you. Thanks, Will. Well, this has been quite a show. So I wanted to. I don't have any music to share with you all, but I'm happy to be here. So what I'm going to do with you now is, I don't know if anybody is. Okay, so I was going to introduce you if you want to just. Okay. So I don't know if anybody is in quarantine with a partner, or if you are, I bless. And it is if you're alone, I know it seems bad, but wow, it seems really cool. So what I learned about my partner in quarantine is that. Well, do you want to come in now?
Sure.
Okay. So this is him. And so basically what I learned is that he needs to have at least 7 packages of store-bought cookies in the house. And it's like, in a way, it's kind of disgusting. So I'm asking him tonight to pick 3 out of, how many do you have right now?
We have 8 right here.
8. You have to pick 3, and 5 will go in the trash. This is high stakes, high octane comedy bit. Okay, so what we're gonna do, you show us the cookies and then we'll predict which one's going down.
You're predicting?
We'll predict.
Okay.
Well, people will be sounding off in the chat, pretty sure about
Can
it.
you start out with these?
Okay, so these are digestives.
McVitie's.
Okay, so what would you say this brings to the table?
Well, it has the illusion of maybe being healthy because it's called digestives. Sounds not like a sugary sweet cookie.
It sounds a little kind of like it's inside the body already.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh-huh.
So they predicted that correctly.
Okay.
And in fact, this brand of digestives actually broke up the Beatles.
All right, so let's kind of end it there. Let's end it there. Okay,
George
so then
Harrison
we don't really need to do Beatles facts at
pack
this
of
point.
them,
Okay,
and
so we're
Yoko
moving
Ono
on.
Took one, and that
Chessmen.
started a whole big.
Chessmen. Okay, this is what would you say this is?
It's a butter cookie.
It's a butter
with
cookie.
Different chess pieces.
Yeah.
Engraved onto them.
Right. So this is basically Pepperidge Farm saying, "Oh, let's try trefoils, huh? Let's try them. Make them an intelligent game nobody can play, huh?"
Well, with along those same lines as the digestives, this has a certain air of intelligence to it.
The flavor is just butter. That's the flavor. Most times people put like vanilla or chocolate. The flavor is butter. So I don't know, but
it makes you feel smarter by eating them.
Okay, so let's see. This next one, this is mine, and I'll say this: these are really thick logs, and I don't know if I recommend them. Basically, dates, almonds, walnuts covered in coconut, and they have the consistency of a I guess dough.
I have no interest in eating these.
Yeah. Okay. So these are out. All right. So then the next one we have is fudge stripes. Okay. These are historically the world's worst cookie.
These are classics.
How would you describe these?
Well, as a child, my brother would call them chocolate up and downs, which he's not wrong. The chocolate does go up and down depending on which way you look at it. But I think these are just a classic shortbread cookie, and you could eat one of them and it's not that much. Serving size, I believe, is 2.
Okay. Moving on. All right. Next up, we got Waffelten. Okay, this is obviously some kind of German thing.
Yeah.
How would you describe
I like these because they're basically like the very last bite of a drumstick, where it has a little chocolate in the bottom of the cone.
So you might call it the chocolate downs.
I would, in fact, think drumstick should create something like this and call it just the tip.
Okay, so then, moving on, we've got.
Good. Also, the way that they package it is interesting.
All right.
It's
okay, just
not really
just
symmetrical.
Just the tip. Okay,
Look,
this,
it'll get people's attention.
yeah, sure. Okay, so this one's a rainbow cookie. A rainbow cookie. If you're not familiar, this is it's pretty much the thickest, wettest cookie on the market. Yeah.
But it is colorful, which I think is points in its
Yeah.
flavor and points in its flavor. I was almost going to say, because each color is a different flavor.
No.
Tastes different to me.
Okay. So that's the rainbow cookies, and then last but not least, we have the St. Louis Institution Bissingers. Okay. And I don't even know if this is a cookie really, but this is.
They're kind of like Christmas zebra cakes. If you ever had zebra cakes from Hostess, and here's what I love about these. I will say this: if you can see this here, they don't look like they go that deep, but when you pull it out, it actually is bigger than you'd expect, kind of like a tooth, like a human tooth.
Yikes! Okay, so
but they're, I mean, look at that's raspberry and white chocolate,
yeah,
and they are like zebra cakes from Hostess, but fancier.
I don't think that's a selling point. So listen.
Should I say Little Debbie? Excuse me.
All right. So now here we go. So this
and
is.
You almost forgot this.
Oh right, I almost forgot this. This is a bowl with a square cookie in it.
It's actually a quadratini,
yeah.
but this is actually the knockoff brand, and it's just called Cubes.
All right, so we are down to, we need to choose 3. Obviously, this is a disgusting amount of cookies. It feels wrong to have them, and it feels like it's kind of, everybody says don't eat sugar, and then we say, no, let's buy 800 bags of cookies. So,
and it's important to keep them refrigerated.
Why?
Because it's more pleasing to eat cold cookies.
We just got a comment that said weird. And thank you, Leah Potter, and I appreciate what you had for your help. Okay, so with that said, you have to choose 3 to keep. The rest will go in the garbage. It's time to.
And maybe if I
yeah.
say that it's not going in the top 3, you say that's the way the cookie crumbles.
You want me to say that?
Mm-hmm.
All right, this one, Chessman.
Intriguing, but ultimately, I'm going to say no.
That's the way the cookie crumbles. Why don't you say it?
I think people want to hear you say it.
Okay, so here we go. Digestives.
You know, I got to keep them. They taste really good, and you can have one for breakfast, and it's actually kind of feels like that was a pretty balanced breakfast.
That's the way the cookie chumbles. Okay, here we go. Rainbow.
You know, I love them, but I'm going to have to say no on this. It's too much. It's too wet. It makes my fingers chocolatey and wet.
Too many flavors in that rainbow, huh? Okay, so next up we've got the cube.
The cube is cute. It's bite-sized.
Yeah.
Ultimately, though, I think I have a couple more above these.
It's crumbling. All right, next up we got Waffleton.
Again, these are ones where ideally you'd eat them in 2 bites. 1 bite, just the cone, 1 bite, the chocolate-covered part, but it's too crumbly. I do usually have a bowl that I eat the cookies over, called a crumb bowl.
Too crumbly.
Because
crumbled
cookies make crumbs, more than you think.
Cookies make crumbs more than you think?
Yeah, you can't just eat a cookie without having
something. This is being recorded, dude.
It.
This is being recorded. You can't say trash like that. Okay, fudge stripe.
No, I'm going to keep them. They're a classic, and they taste delicious. And the people are saying must keep,
okay.
And they're all
right.
correct.
Don't point at the screen. It's kind of intimidating. Okay, these little logs.
You can keep those.
Okay, I like to call them date tubes. Okay, so and then left is a Bissingers.
I've got to keep it. It's too good and delicious and fancy, and it makes me feel like I'm pulling out wisdom teeth when I take it out of the package.
Okay, so we've got the finals are the fudge stripes, the Bissingers, and the digestives. Come over to our house, because our cookies are going to be in the trash. All right. Thank you so much. And back to you, Will.
Woo! Woo! All right, new to the auction, we have some off-brand quadratini up for bid. They're $1,000 starting from the garbage. The The chocolate up and downs really reminded me of going to my neighbor's house because we didn't have, well, all we had was homemade cookies, and we would like go to our neighbor's house and they had like Little Debbie snack cakes and Mothers and what I now think of as chocolate up and downs. I've since retconned them into my own memory. Thank you, Joe. Big St. Louis contingent tonight. Joe's from St. Louis. Many of these comments are from St. Louis. Yeah. Hi, St. Louis. I mean, half these people are not in St. Louis anymore because it's the way the cookie crumbles. So they say. But enough about me. Well, anytime I'm talking, just like go and look at the auction stuff. You don't have to listen to what I'm saying. This is just time. You have 46 minutes left to bid. Holy smokes, get that eBay heart rate going. But now I'm going to hand it over to Jenny, and she is going to talk about the situation out in Arizona.
It's true. That is what I'm going to talk about for 3 minutes. In a second, I'm really excited. We're going to hear from a few members of our giving circle about why they're part of this and what it means to them. But first, as Will said, I want to say a few words about Arizona. So the Riveters had a 70-member Zoom meeting in late May, and we voted on which state we wanted to fundraise for this year. There were 12 states, target states to choose from. Some of them would be defending the gains we made in 2018. Some would be breaking supermajorities in key states, and others are looking to flip a chamber entirely. So in Arizona, we have the chance to flip both chambers of the legislature. We are 1 seat away from breaking the majority in the House and 2 seats away in the Senate. Future Now Fund worked in Arizona in 2018, and we came within 1,300 votes. We have endorsed some really amazing candidates there this year, again, including 2 who came within half a percentage point last time and are running again this year. And so you might have seen in the news, Arizona currently has the highest COVID case per capita of any state, higher than New York City at the height of our outbreak. It's a real failure of leadership, and there is no Democratic majority in either chamber to put a check on the governor who's right in step with Trump. Arizona also has the most severe laws against felon voting, with 220,000 disenfranchised and one of the highest incarceration rates in the nation. Their legislature was also responsible for passing the notoriously racist Show Me Your Papers law, which was designed by private prison companies to target Latino immigrants and fill up their prisons for profit. They're also eyeing the upcoming census as a chance to take over the redistricting process and break up the only Native American majority district in the state. Lastly, Arizona is the most discriminatory state when it comes to education funding. That means tens of millions being diverted to private and religious schools. That means no special allocation of money to schools with a high number of low-income students. And studies show that majority non-white schools in Arizona are shorted by more than $7,600 per pupil per year. So in terms of working systemically to fix racial inequities, Arizona seems like a really good place to start. And it's cheap. $350,000 could flip either chamber of the legislature. So I want to thank you guys all for listening and for considering helping us fund a really significant portion of that number. And I would love to introduce next 2 members of our giving circle who live in Arizona. And they are some of me and Will's oldest friends, Mark and Sarah in Phoenix, and maybe also their daughter, Josephine, too. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Let's pass it on over to Mark and Sarah.
Hey, Jenny.
Hi.
So everything you just said really resonates with me. My name is Mark Bowden. I'm a teacher in Arizona. I teach 8th grade science in Southwest Phoenix. And, I taught in 2 other states, and the level that students are getting here and the level that teachers are given to work with students is so much less than any other place I taught. And the only way that's going to change is if Democrats gain control of the legislature. For years and years, it's been Republican controlled, and there hasn't been change. So I really want, really want that to happen.
Yeah, and I think, so I'm Sarah Sullivan, and I have lived in Arizona since 2008. I came out here to go to school. I was living in Chicago at the time, and I very much thought I will be here for 3 years while I get my degree, and then I will, move back to Chicago where I can make art. I'm a theater artist, and this community is really incredible. I'm so glad that this is where I ended up, that this is where we've made our home, that this is where we're raising our family. And I think that something that I would just remind folks who are looking to support Arizona who aren't living here is that this is a community that's worth investing in. It's not just about the impact that it will have on the larger scale, although that is important. It is, this is a community that is incredibly active, that is incredibly present and vibrant. The artwork you see behind us is all local Arizona artists, which is not planned. I just realized that as you were talking, but we have the votes here. This is no longer a Republican majority state. It's just about resources and access to vote. Because if every person who can vote in Arizona had access to voting, a Republican would never win an election again. So your resources make a big difference here, and thanks for supporting. We're stoked. And I think now we hand it to the next person is Elizabeth.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Mitchell. Like many of you, I'd imagine I was devastated after the election in November of 2016. I knit a pink hat, I protested on the mall, I cried, I laughed, and I bonded with so many other people who could not believe this was happening in Georgia. I was angry and frustrated, and I felt powerless. But then I saw a Facebook post. My friend was looking for people to help him flip the Virginia state legislature. He had identified GOP-held districts that Hillary had won. The voters were there. We just had to get them to turn out for this off-year election. It seemed simple enough, except that these were districts that were horribly gerrymandered, and these elections were often so close they were decided by just a few votes. He also explained that it took much less money and effort to flip a state house seat than it did to flip a congressional seat. That special election that I mentioned in Georgia was for John Ossoff. He had raised over $23 million for that seat. He broke every congressional fundraising record. He still lost. My friend explained that the state legislative campaign has a much smaller budget and that you could have flipped the entire state for a fraction of that $23 million. So we got to work. We recruited volunteers, we met with candidates, and we were so inspired by their stories. One candidate was running because the VA had failed him. Another had vulnerable clients who were being neglected by a system that was never meant to actually serve them. Another was running because as a nurse, she saw too many patients not get the care and service they needed because it cost too much. We hosted fundraisers, we wrote postcards, but most of all, we knocked doors. We knocked on thousands of doors with the candidates because that's the #1 way to get voters to turn out for you. On election night in 2017, I was nervous, but I was not disappointed or depressed. I felt empowered because I knew I had done everything I could to help our candidates win their elections. 6 out of our 7 candidates won their seats, and we came a coin toss away from taking the Virginia House majority. But the real victory for me came months later when my phone started ringing. Moms I knew in Virginia were calling me because the Virginia House had just passed a Medicaid expansion bill. The Virginia GOP had spent 5 years blocking this expansion, but a plucky nurse we had helped named Dawn Adams was able to push it through without the majority. 400,000 more people had access to healthcare because of her, including quite a few people I knew personally. What I hadn't realized was that the expansion meant that adults with autism would now be covered, and that's why my phone was blowing up. Moms were calling me. Moms who had children that had gone to school with my kids. I knew firsthand from them how challenging it was to parent a child with special needs. The Medicaid expansion took a huge weight off their shoulders because it meant that no matter what happened in the years to come, their children would be covered when they reached adulthood. Until that day, I really only had a vague sense of how powerful state legislatures were and how cruel they could be. In addition to blocking Medicaid expansion, the GOP had blocked gun sense legislation, worked to prohibit access to reproductive health, and rolled back environmental protections. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. In 2019, we took the majority. When the oldest continuous legislative body in the Western Hemisphere took their seats in January of 2020, they were one of the most diverse groups in history, and they proceeded to undo over a decade's worth of Tea Party legislation. And in quick succession, they passed bills that raised the minimum wage, strengthened environmental protections, helped undocumented immigrants, eased access to reproductive health, and funded badly needed infrastructure projects. They also passed gun sense legislation, the ERA, and they became the first state in the South to ban LGBTQ discrimination. Each one of those things in its own right is amazing, but taken together, they're earth-shattering, especially for the 8.5 million people who live there. So why Future Now Fund and why this year? The more of this work I did, the more I kept hearing about this incredible organization. A few months ago, I was lucky enough to score an invitation to a Future Now Fund given by this Giving Circle. When Melissa Walker, who you'll hear from later, our director of Giving Circle, started telling her story, I was floored. It was so similar to mine, but she had been so much more successful. She had raised hundreds of thousands of dollars, where I'd only raised tens of thousands. She explained all the different ways that this work was impacting state legislatures across the country. And I cannot tell you how incredible it was to hear someone else speak about this invaluable work. So this year is 2020. We're conducting a national census. Communities across the country are trying to figure out how to count every household during this crisis. We have COVID happening, and I think it's never been more apparent than right now why state legislative races are so important. And I can't help but thank Jenny Shore for introducing me to this group, and it's so amazing, and I love the work you guys are doing. So thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Erin Moore, and I live in New York City. I'm from St. Louis originally, which is how Jenny and I know each other. We grew up together in high school, dancing together. And I joined the circle after Jenny and I reconnected over lunch in 2000, maybe a year ago, around a year ago. But I had been really frustrated, like everybody else said, after the election. I marched, went to the Women's March. I really stopped saying the president's name after the election. I stopped arguing. But I had been feeling really frustrated in 2016 with all of the shootings of unarmed, Black people with impunity. And had kind of protested, had been in St. Louis around the Mike Brown shooting, but just, frustrated with the country in general. But those were, I think, the precipitating events that led to my frustration coming up to here. So anyway, Jenny and I were talking, and she told me about the group and reminded me of the importance of state legislatures. And I was like, ooh, so I like rhetoric and emotion, but I like strategy even more. So I came to one of the meetings maybe last year and was really, enamored with the strategy part and the really impactful change, and the fact that I could give at a level that was, almost like the crowdfunding sort of sense of the organization of the Giving Circle, and that I could give when I could give, how I could give, how much I could give, and it actually have an impact, a really large impact. Because I just feel like I've been feeling powerless. So I appreciate the work that this circle is doing and that the organization at large does, and think it's really important. And even though I'm unemployed, give and will continue to give as I can. I think Melissa at one of the meetings that I was at was saying, give in a way that you feel, that makes you, not put you out, but that you feel. So that's sort of my objective. And in that way, I feel like I'm contributing in a really concrete way to concrete changes. So that's sort of my thing. And Jenny's a boss.
Hey guys, I'm Lisa. Thank you, Erin. I hope everyone's having a good time. I joined the Riveters Giving Circle in October last year. I attended my first Riveters meeting and I was blown away by the tangible stories of change. I learned about how the fund in North Carolina, who went on to show up every day while undergoing breast cancer treatment to make sure Democrats would have the numbers to veto the latest round of oppressive abortion legislation. I was moved to tears by this story, and I couldn't help but think about how a small group of people could band together and help do something as profound as protect 5 million women's right to choose in North Carolina. I decided that day to give my money to this cause, and I decided over the next several months to give increasing amounts of my time. Why? Because I know that some of our bravest, brightest minds start out as state legislators. They're inspiring people. We can make sure the next Barack Obama, the next Stacey Abrams, the next Sidney Batch don't lose their election by a handful of votes because Republicans did a better job supporting state candidates. Because I know a little bit about redistricting, and I know that the state legislative bodies elected in 2020 will be in charge in 37 states of drawing the new congressional maps. Because while I live in Brooklyn now, I'm an Ohio girl at heart, and I know what it's like to see a Republican state legislature take a once blue state and use radical partisan gerrymandering to literally remove reliably blue congressional seats and hand themselves a majority of seats with a minority of votes. It's infuriating. Because I don't want to wake up on November 4th, 2020 and think I could have done something more impactful to make sure people knew what was at stake all the way up and down their ballot. I want to leave it all in the field. Because I know that together we can pool our resources. They may be limited or they may be plentiful, but they're definitely numerous. We cannot stand by and let billionaires and special interest groups continue to oppress us. We are the majority, and work to elect people who will make lasting systemic change. So whether it's with your time or your wallet, I hope you'll join us and put a deposit down on all of our futures. It could be $50, $100, $500, $1,000, $10,000. We need to do what we can to support the people who will walk the walk and legislate a better future for us all. So thank you guys all for coming. I know everybody's busy and you have a lot of things you could be doing with your time, but we're glad you came to have fun with us, and we hope you'll bid on the auction prizes. Thank you to all of the amazing donors. We have so much stuff there. Back to Will of Arcade Fire fame, our charming host, who I don't think he's mentioned it yet because he's pretty modest. He's releasing a new album called Generations in September and a new single called Surrender next week. So let's have some more fun. Thanks, guys.
Yahoo. Thank you, everyone. That was really beautiful. It really drove home what a community this is, what a web of people, from like my wife's childhood friend who is our contemporary friend in the city. We live in a different part of the country, to my college roommate who's now in Arizona, and just people from all over working for Arizona, which some of us have roots there. Some of us, it's just a beautiful place that we care about. So yeah, it was really meaningful to hear all of that. There's 28 minutes in this auction. There's some really beautiful art up there. Emily Flake, the cartoonist for The New Yorker, has stuff. Brantley Gutierrez, who did the last Paul McCartney video, who's Arcade Fire's longtime photographer, has some amazing photos. Marcel Zama has some limited prints. He's on the frickin' walls of MoMA. So there's some beautiful things in the auction. In a minute, we're going to hear from singer-songwriter Davy Boi on the West Coast. On West Coast time, we're going to journey back in time for some of us to 3 hours ago. And he's amazing. But first, we're going to go back to the talented DJ Shiftee. So, full screen ahead, turn your speakers up, and enjoy DJ Shiftee and Davy Boi.
Drop top, in the drop top, in the drop top, in the drop top, made back of the Hummer. In the drop top, 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 in the. Yo, Shiftee, you a madman for this, Yo, Shiftee, you a madman for this. yo, Shiftee, you a madman for this, y'all. Yo, Shiftee, you a madman. Stay up on my grind. Stay up on my grind like stay up on my grind. Stay up on my grind like yo, Shiftee, 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 yo, Shiftee. You a madman for this, y'all.
You in this Zoom room, you in your living room, you on the phone with a friend, you can make the difference. You can make the difference. You can make the difference. You in this, you can make the.
If you live a life to the max, say yeah. If you're making money for the fam, say yeah. If you hold it down for the gang, say yeah. If you feeling fresh to some mother, say yeah. If you live a life to the max, say yeah. If you're making money for the fam, say yeah. If you hold it down for the gang, say yeah. If you feeling fresh to some mother, say yeah. If you live a life to the max, say yeah. If you're making money for the fam, say yeah. If you hold it down for the gang, say yeah. If you feeling fresh to some mother, say yeah. If you feeling fresh to some mother, say If you live a life to the max, say yeah. If you're making money for the fam, say yeah. If you hold it down for the gang, say yeah. If you feeling fresh to some mother, say yeah. If you live a life to the max, say yeah.
Check, check. Hello, everybody. How we doing out there? Yeah, that gives me the feeling I was looking for when I said that. Exactly that. Thank you. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our next performer, a close collaborator of myself. He goes by Davy Boi. He's from Los Angeles, or he lives in Los Angeles, and he's a citizen of the world, I suppose. Let me read some of his official PR so I don't get anything wrong, and I give him the hype that he deserves and that he gets all his like stats on the table. All right, so alternative R&B laced with silky smooth pop vocals and tailored top lines. Davy Boi explores his sexual identity as an out and albino man navigating romantic relationships in a murky app culture while also working through issues of self-love and self-doubt from his youth. Yeah, that's what the music is. Championed by Billboard, Gay Times, among many other publications, his indie debut EP, Everything So Far, has generated over 1.75 million streams across Spotify and other streaming platforms. And we're working on his new project right now, and it's even better. It's even more about the issues of self-love and self-doubt, but also triumphant with like crazy sonics and amazing songwriting. So let's get a little bit of a taste of that. It's my pleasure to introduce my friend Davy Boi.
Heart is newly vacant, it's ready for the taking. Was sick of being patient, about to make a move. Had to press my way through, never easy to replace you. Since you didn't want the label on the summer. Who is this new phone? Had that dip moved on. Call the lift, I'm gone. So I can move along, I keep pushing on. Same shit, same you, a new foundation. I got a new babe, a new boo, a new foundation. I went through some bad shit, came up like Lazarus. I'm in a whole ass fucking mood. Same tracks, new compilation. Same shit, but new foundation. Same shade, but new foundation. Same shade, but no foundation. Yo, new bag, new swag, new everything. New flow, new shows, doing better things. New glam, new brands, rocking 7 rings. Yo, I'm rocking 7 rings. Just know I'm so sensational. My glow is unmistakable, and my glow is irreplaceable. Irreplaceable. Who is this new phone? Had that dip moved on. Call the lift, I'm gone. So I can move along, I keep pushing on. Same shit, same you, a new foundation. I got a new babe, a new boo, a new foundation. I went through some bad shit, came up like Lazarus. I'm in a whole ass fucking mood. Same tracks, new compilation. Same shit, but new foundation. Same shit, but no foundation. Same shit, but no foundation. New bag, new swag, new everything. New glow, new shows, doing better things. Thank you so much for having me. Again, I'm Davy Boi, and I have another couple songs for you. Knock on my door with no warning. Wanna hit this to the morning. I know what you came for. Met you out late on the weekend. Now it's Tuesday. You were freaking. You couldn't wait 1 minute more. You just trying to use my sex. You've been running from your ex, and you just trying to chill for a sec. Yeah. You got a dirty mood. You want it all the time. You just want my number to hit me up offline. And I see where you're going. I know who you are. You got a dirty mind. You got a dirty mind, dirty mind. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Dirty mind, yeah. You come speeding like a rabbit, skipping stop signs, faster driving. Go, you on a mission now. Now I'm your anthem, call me handsome, take advantage, do your damage. I couldn't wait 1 minute more.
you just trying to use my sex. And you been running from your ex. And you just trying to chill for a sec. Yeah, you got a dirty mind. You want it all the time. You just want my number to hit me up offline. And I see where you go. I know who you are. You got a dirty mind. You got a dirty mind, dirty mind. I like it, I like it. Tell me how you feel, we can try it. I like it, I like it. Tell me how you feel. Woo. I like it, I like it. Tell me how you feel, we can try it. I like it. Tell me how you feel. You said, Daddy, I'm ready to go. Doors unlocked, they wear no clothes. You said, Daddy, I'm ready to go. Doors unlocked, they wear no clothes. Now you said, Daddy, I'm ready to go. Doors unlocked, they wear no clothes. You said, Daddy, I'm ready to go. You said, Daddy, you got a dirty mind. You want it all the time. You just want my number to hit me up offline. I see where you can go, and I know who you are. You got a dirty mind. You got a dirty mind, dirty mind. We can try it. I like it, I like it. Tell me how you feel. I like it, I like it. Tell me how you feel, we can try it. Tell me how you feel. Tell me how you feel, yeah, 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 yeah. Tell me how you feel, yeah, 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 yeah. Tell me how you feel. Tell me how you feel. Tell me how you feel, yeah, 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 yeah. Tell me how you feel, yeah, 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 yeah. Tell me how you feel. Cool, okay. So this next one. So actually, I am a citizen of the world, but more specifically, a citizen of Louisiana. So this song I wrote is called New Orleans. It's actually not out, so you all are getting a special preview of a coming soon track. And this is New Orleans. Sun is going down at last. Summer's going by too fast. How could I leave you? How could I leave you alone tonight? Won't you let me hold your hand? Wish I hadn't made these plans. How could I leave you? How could I leave you without goodbye? Wish I could rewind right where we left it. I'll never forget this. I'll wait for your message. I'll miss you through the night. I'll call in the morning when I'm back in New Orleans. I woke up feeling tired as dirt, waiting on your every word. How could I leave you? How could I leave you last night? It's getting late and still no call. I wonder if I hear it all. Was this just a moment? Should I have known it was goodbye? Wish I could rewind right where we left it. I'll never forget this. I'll wait for your message. I'll miss you through the night. I'll call in the morning when I'm back in New Orleans. Back in New Orleans. I'll miss you through the night. I'll call in the morning when I'm back in New Orleans. God knows. God knows. God knows. We'll be alright. Come the hours. Wish I could rewind right where we left it. I'll never forget this. I'll wait for your message. I'll miss you through the night. I'll call in the morning when I'm back in New Orleans. Thank you all so much. I am Davy Boi, and on social media, it's I am Davy Boi.
Holy
Thank you.
smokes. Thank you, Davy Boy. Holy, what a goddamn privilege this evening. Holy smokes. And Shiftee. And for the two, I'm super excited. I heard a little bit of the stuff they're working on. So for the stuff the two of them are doing, it's gonna be so good. It's already so good. Yeah. If you want to DJ like Shiftee, he'll teach you all his secrets. You can bid on a lesson with him through the auction. We have extended it to 10, but I'm putting up that there's 8 minutes and 58 seconds just to get your heart rate going, so you get those bids in. But just add 30 to that. If you can't add 30 to that, ask my son Alvin. He can add 30 to anything. Yeah, wow. Holy smokes, what a privilege. What a Davy Boy and Shiftee and Joe and Miles and yeah, wow. Holy smokes, and hearing from all of you. In a minute, we're going to hear from the Future Now people. We're going to hear from Melissa Walker, who's the director of Giving Circles, who's spoken at many Riveters meetings and is amazing. And first, we're going to hear the founder of Future Now, Daniel Squadron. He was the youngest member of the New York Senate in 2008 when he was elected. And he was there for 9-ish years and left because he could do this. He could realize that he could leverage his knowledge and the power of people giving what they can to change legislatures all over the country. So yeah, without further ado, the most excellent Daniel Squadron.
Thank you very much. It's pretty amazing. I actually had no idea I could do this when I left Will. Listening to those musicians and artists, it's pretty phenomenal and pretty inspiring. Sitting here like the rest of you are in quarantine, the Bell House would have been better. Where maybe I guess you are, Will. I entered a little late, so tell us how it is if that's where you are. So it's really, truly very exciting to see everyone doing this, especially in this time. You know, it's an interesting thing. Just a couple of months ago when COVID shut down so much of our society and our communities, you know, we didn't know the extent to which people would be willing to continue to look past the next day and the next week, would be willing to, in addition to stepping up for local businesses and vulnerable people in their community and healthcare workers who needed protection, also think about the long-term and the structural crisis that brought us here. And so the fact that this is happening, it's sad that we're not in person, but it's actually all the more exciting and inspiring that we are doing this, and that the Riveters have come together to do this, and all of the members have. This is the single most important way that you can have an impact on the future. If you feel fury, as I do, that we have a government that has again taken the COVID crisis into a place where there's not enough material for testing or to protect healthcare workers, that there was a false choice made, totally created and funded by a small number of corporations between reopening and killing people, if you feel rage about the ongoing killings by police of innocent Black people and other people of color, if you feel that this election coming up is the most important one you have ever lived in, all of those are feelings that I share. They're all feelings that are right. The one feeling that you may have sometimes that I think we're all here to fight against for real reason is a feeling of hopelessness. There is no reason to be hopeless or helpless. This is the knife's edge of a crisis that I think many of us hoped wouldn't come in this country, but also if you look at the way in which the things I just talked about really didn't start 4 months ago. They really didn't start when Donald Trump won the Electoral College or descended the golden escalator into the presidential race. These are realities in this country and a path in this country we've been living with for decades. They are a path in this country that was designed and planned for by a small number of radical conservatives and corporations who had a vested interest in creating an oligarchy in the 1970s. They didn't like the civil rights movement. They didn't like the consumer protection movement. They didn't like the environmental movement. And so they planned to put a stop to it, and the place they did it, the place they started was state legislatures. All the rest of us did our civic duty, or many of the rest of us, for being honest, did our civic duty and voted and served on the jury and focused on and talked about the presidential race over cocktails or dinner. And meanwhile, they were sowing the seeds and building the foundation at the core of the politics to create exactly what you see today. Donald Trump's ethno-nationalism and proto-fascism wasn't created by Donald Trump. That's not what he does. He brands other ideas. Those ideas already existed in mainstream politics in state legislatures. They existed when Arizona passed a law that said you could be stopped for driving while Latino. They existed when Trayvon Martin's killer was left to roam the streets because of the Stand Your Ground law in Florida. They have existed for years. They existed when a half dozen states passed laws to ban Sharia law from being used in their state courts, when 0 state courts in American history have ever relied on Sharia law. This is the country we live in because it is the politics we have allowed to happen, not by being apathetic, not by being distracted, but by not uncovering the truth and getting at the core, which is state legislatures. Your willingness to do that in this time is going to have an enormous impact. The Arizona House has not been controlled by Democrats since Barry Goldwater, who, by the way, was their first shot at this kind of radical politics that we now see dominating this country. Since Barry Goldwater was in the US Senate, you all, this year, the Riveters, the people on this, whatever this is, every one of you, the Melissa Walker Shiftee mix, are going to be the single most important force to get the Arizona House, and hopefully the Senate as well, over the top and flip them. That is going to mean that the state of Arizona, the state that passed that racial profiling law just a decade ago, the state where Joe Arpaio was elected sheriff again and again and again and piloted the kind of inhumane concentration camp type ways of dealing with immigrants. That state will be controlled by people who believe in pretty simple things, like an end to racial profiling, like 100% of kids graduating with a quality K through 12 education in this country, like 100% of energy investments going to clean, renewable energy. That is going to be the difference. A state where today COVID is off the charts, where you have a governor who wouldn't require masks, where you had state legislators who stood on the floor in the Arizona legislature and took off their masks, put everyone else at risk to make a point in the majority. That's going to change because of the work you do. It's not a small thing. And the fact that you're willing and able to do it in this time is the inspiration that keeps us going at Future Now Fund. We couldn't be more grateful We're really excited to do this with you. And the one promise I always ask for is, as we get closer and closer to the presidential election and the president gets more and more offensive, don't let them distract you. That Twitter feed, those cable news headlines, they are designed to make all of us chase the shiny object, while the small number of vested special interests who are making a fortune off of this craziness maintain power where it matters most. Please, 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 for the next 118 days, don't let it happen. Thank you so much for everything you're doing.
Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Walker. That was such an awesome evening. I'm really excited. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. Thanks to the Riveters for everything you're doing. I will say that I think everyone has covered a lot of my normal talking points, so I don't even know what to say. I'm going to talk just very briefly and close us out. So a lot of you have heard my story. I'm a children's book writer who heard Daniel Squadron speak, as you just heard Daniel Squadron speak, and was awakened to the power of state legislatures. And I will say that when I opened my eyes to state legislatures, I started to connect a bunch of dots that had never made sense to me. Because I knew that I felt a new kind of pain when Donald Trump was elected, but I recognized some pain points along the way that I didn't understand. And so before November of 2016, there were these other moments that hit me. There was Trayvon Martin, and the first time I heard of stand your ground gun laws. There was Newtown and the game that my child came home from pre-K telling me about, called Lights Out, Don't Make a Sound, where she was hiding in the closet with other 4-year-olds in a lockdown drill. There was Michael Brown lying in the street in Ferguson, and I stayed up all night and I donated and I cried, but I didn't know what else to do. There was the Flint water crisis in Michigan. There was Tamir Rice playing with a toy in a park. There was the Charleston shooting and President Obama breaking into an emotional chorus of Amazing Grace. There was a bathroom bill passing in my home state of North Carolina. And every time that one of those things happened, and they kept happening, I knew that something was terribly wrong. But I had no idea what to do. And I thought, surely President Obama, that administration, they can do something and Congress will act. But again and again, everything kept happening. Nothing changed in Washington, D.C. And I realized that what I was doing, I was in a cycle of donating a little bit, crying a little bit, tweeting, and sitting back down. And I didn't know how to act. So when I heard Daniel Squadron outlining the idea of the power of state legislatures, I felt like all these dots got connected for me. The bathroom bill was Raleigh. Flint, Michigan was Lansing. The stand your ground gun bills was Tallahassee. And I saw a path to change. So when I found this drumbeat, I didn't know a lot of the things that I know now. But I think a lot of people on this call have heard me and heard Jenny speak a few times, and you can probably say it with me, all the things that state legislatures impact: civil rights, environmental policy, education funding, voting rights, gerrymandering. And I want to say this: if you care about the Supreme Court, you should care about state legislatures, because the Supreme Court rules on laws that are written in state legislatures. If you care about Congress, you should care about state legislatures, because the gerrymandered maps decide who goes to Congress, and those maps are drawn in state legislatures. If you care about the presidency, you should care about state legislatures, because voting rights are decided in state legislatures. And as Elizabeth talked about in Virginia, Virginia made Election Day a holiday. It is a state holiday. We can do that in every state, and it will change who wins, and it will change who has access to the vote. So tonight, you're being asked to join the Riveters, which is an amazing giving circle. And what I always say is that everyone needs to join with a meaningful mission. And Aaron talked about this a little earlier. The word meaningful means a bunch of things to a bunch of people, and that's by design. So I always say, give something that you'll feel, give something that you'll care about and want to watch and follow and be engaged with. And I'm going to tell the story of my Giving Circle gift very briefly. So my first year of having a Giving Circle, which was 2017, I gave $1,000. And it was the most that I'd ever given to anything at any one time. But I calculated that it was about $100 a month until November, because we were in January, and I thought, I can do this. And I worried about what was going to happen, whether I was going to have to cook at home for the rest of the year, whether my kids were not going to be able to have school clothes. But the truth was that a month later, I realized I didn't feel that gift. I had given $1,000 and it was okay. I noticed it, but I didn't feel it. And so the next year in my Giving Circle, I gave a little more, because the truth is that when I see what's happening in our country, it makes me want to cry, it makes me want to scream, it makes me want to rage. And at the same time, to me, it's all sort of up in the air. None of it has come to my doorstep. I have not lost a friend or family member to police violence. I have not been separated from my children. I have not lost my livelihood to a healthcare bill. But other Americans have. There is real pain happening. And it's not knocking on my door quite yet. And my job is to fight as hard as I can. And for me, give as much as I can so that I feel my involvement and I know that I did as much as I could. So that's what we ask of all of you joining the Riveters tonight. And we're really, really, I'm really inspired by everyone tonight. I'm gonna watch the video. I'm gonna probably cry again. I couldn't cry because I didn't wanna cry and then speak. But this was amazing, and thank you for having me. And I'm just grateful that everyone is here. So, good night.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Davy Boi. Thank you, Jo Firestone. Thank you, Miles Francis. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Mark and Sarah. Thank all of you. Yes, please, you can just give direct if you want, or you can bid on the auction. What is there left? There's 23 minutes left in this auction. Buy it now. But no, I mean, part of the deal is that it's not just money, it's a community. These are people in my neighborhood, these are people from our lives, and if I haven't met you yet and you're joining the Giving Circle, then we are now in each other's lives. Thank you to everyone who's been doing this work for way longer than I have, and thank you. Yeah, thanks guys. I feel pretty good for how weird I feel. Just a terrible Sunday night. If you wanna come by, it's alright, it's alright. I've been sleeping on a bed of nails. I'm a little pale. But if you told me that we had to run, I would run, I would run, I would run. And I wouldn't look back till you told me so. Tell me where to go, past the kids lying in the road, past the fires burning everything old, over every river, every mountain, till we reach the sea. But I don't know what I don't know, what I don't know, what I don't know. I don't know what I can do. If you ask me what'll I be, let me see, let me see, let me see. I'd be a teacher, be a preacher, be a bird in a tree. If you ask me who do I blame, teachers, blame the preachers, blame the birds in the trees. But I don't know what I don't know, 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 what I don't know. I don't know what I can do. I don't know what I can do. Tell me that there's something there. I don't care, I don't care, I don't care. If you watch it, you can watch it as it disappears. Watch the oil burn into smoke. Watch the eyes as they tell the joke. Watch the bullets and the beaters as they move through the streets. Grab your sisters, hide next to the fire station. Cause I don't know what I don't know, 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 what I don't know. I don't know what I can do. 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 Shiftee, if something sounds weird, just call me on the phone. Remember,
I don't know.
You told me
Maybe so.
that you wanted
I don't know.
to surrender. Remember,
I don't know.
you told me
Maybe so.
you were looking
I don't know.
for something higher. I remember it all, and I can tell you the truth, and I can tell what I told, but I'm so tired, I'm so tired now, I'm so tired of sitting around thinking about you. No, 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 child. I wish you had my head. Remember,
I don't know.
we were walking
Maybe so.
by the river.
I don't know.
It was freezing. Remember,
I don't know.
we were talking,
Maybe so.
and you were smiling,
I don't know.
and you loved me. I remember it all, and I can tell you the truth, and I can tell what I told, but I'm so tired now, I'm so tired of sitting around thinking about you. No, 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 child, stay away from my dreams. Remember,
I don't know.
you told me
Maybe so.
that you wanted
I don't know.
to surrender. Oh, please surrender. Remember,
I don't know.
you told me
Maybe so.
that you wanted
I don't know.
to surrender. Oh, please surrender. Oh, please surrender. Oh, surrender to something. Come on, surrender to something. The world's bigger than we are. The world's bigger than we are. We gotta break through the circle. We gotta see how we're broken. Come on, surrender to something. I gotta tell you I'm sorry, 'cause I've been talking all night. Oh, I've been talking all night. Oh,
talking all night. Oh, I've been talking all night. Oh, I've been talking all night, night, 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 night.
Just want to shift that way. Just to give it another look, see this part of my face. I'm tired of waiting for a better day, but I'm scared and I'm lazy and nothing's gonna change. The blood's still fresh on the ground, but I'm far and I'm safe and I will not make a sound. Confession to a lesser crime, but I'll never do the time, 'cause I was studying what to say. Something is calling in the night, but I'm keeping still beside the light. I know you're gonna come around and stand by me, but I'm tired of standing well. The world's dissolving. Close my eyes, close my eyes, close my eyes, and it's almost alright. If you can understand, then come in close and hold me tighter. In my mind, in my mind, in my mind, I wanna choose the right, but you know it's hard enough to breathe. The photograph is always new, but I seen that same headline, and I got to dance to keep from crying. My head is tired, my eyes are weak, my heart is saying that I can't speak. I know you're gonna come around and stand by me, but I'm tired of standing well. The world's dissolving. Close my eyes, close my eyes, close my eyes, and it's almost alright. If you can understand, then come in close and hold me tighter. In my mind, in my mind, in my mind, I wanna choose the right, but you know it's hard enough to breathe. Close my eyes, close my eyes, close my eyes, and it's almost alright. If you can understand, then come in close and hold me tighter. In my mind, in my mind, in my mind, I wanna choose the right, but you know it's hard enough to breathe. Close my eyes, close my eyes, close my eyes, and it's almost alright. If you can understand, then come in close and hold me tighter. In my mind, in my mind, in my mind, I wanna choose the right, but you know it's hard enough to breathe.
got a secret, well, everybody knows it. If you come and tell me, well, how am I supposed to hold it? It's been burning in the sunlight, it's been laughing in the silence. There's a life to it now, some quick, uncanny life. Every angry angel, every burning bush, just turn your back on them, it's all a little much. Oh, well, I'm not talking, 'cause I don't feel like lying. And if you stay silent, we can walk on in silence. We can hide it away for so long. You can hide it away, but only hide it away for so long. If they can't ask your name, well, you don't have to answer. If they're knocking at your door, well, you don't have to answer. If they say it's a crime, well, you don't have to answer. And if you know it's a crime, well, you don't have to answer. You can hide it away for so long. You can hide it away, but only hide it away for so long. Every half confession that I ever made, any false position is sprawled out on the page. The cuts have stopped bleeding, it's not right to be afraid, but I can spare a shiver when they're walking on my grave. You can hide it away for so long. You can hide it away, but only hide it away for so long. If they say it's a lie, well, you don't have to answer. If you just close your eyes, well, you don't have to answer. You can hide it away for so long. You can hide it away, but only hide it away for so long. If you got a secret, well, everybody knows it. If you come and tell me, well, I'll try to hold it. We can bury it in silence, we can banish it to midnight. There's no use talking to the others, how the others can look so free. It's just money and power might set them free. It's just money and power might set them free. It's just money and power might set them free. It's just money and power might set them free. You can hide it away for so long. You can hide it away, but only hide it away for so long. You can hide it away for so long. You can hide it away, but only hide it away for so long. I ain't hanging up this time. I ain't giving up tonight. Even if you walk around as though you think you're right, at your worst I still believe it's worth the fight. I can make it all go away. Tell me what you're thinking, don't delay. We could still be having some sweet memories. This heart's still peaceful, you, why can't you see? Shut up, kiss me, hold me tight. Shut up, kiss me, hold me tight. Stop your crying, it's alright. Shut up, kiss me, hold me tight. Shut up, kiss me, hold me tight. Stop pretending I'm not there, when it's clear I'm not going anywhere. If you can't see me, then take another look around. I'm still out here, hoping to be found. Shut up, kiss me, hold me tight. Shut up, kiss me, hold me tight. Stop your crying, it's alright. Shut up, kiss me, hold me tight. Shut up, kiss me, hold me tight. We could make it all disappear. We could rewind all of your fears. We could end all this pain right here. We could end all this pain right here. We could take it down to the floor. You don't have to feel it anymore. It looks so real that it can't be ignored. It's all over, baby. I'm still yours. I'm still yours. Shut up, kiss me, hold me tight. Shut up, kiss me, hold me tight. Stop your crying, it's alright. Shut up, kiss me, hold me tight. 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 Stop your crying, it's alright. Shut up, kiss me, hold me tight. Shut up, kiss me, hold me tight.
All right. Whew. Thank you, guys. Woo! All right, there's 4 minutes left in the auction. It's for real this time. This is to the end of the road. Still I can't. Oh, I can't. Maybe I'll do this for 4 minutes. Still I can't let go. I'll make love to you. Okay. So do that. Put in your final bids. I'm gonna go over here, wander over here, and play a song if we can. Here, give that. If Lisa can pull up that guy. I'm gonna grab a sip of water also. It's warm down here in the basement.
No AC in the basement. Uh-oh.
What happened?
What happened?
Start video. Okay. There we go.
Phew.
This partly the story is about my grandfather, my great-grandfather, my great-great-great-grandfather. It's a little bit about George Washington. There's a glimpse. I just read this about this guy, Harry Washington. He was a slave of George Washington's. And in 1776, he was about my age. He was 36, I'm 38. My age, here's about, these people fighting for liberty. And the British say, well, if you fight the Americans, we'll give you your liberty for real. And so Harry Washington ran away from Mount Vernon and joined the British and fought against the Americans from 1776 to 1783. He ended up in New York at the end of the war. He was going to be taken back into slavery by George Washington, so he got on a boat to Nova Scotia with about 400 other now free black people who went and lived in Nova Scotia for 3 years, and it just super duper sucked, and the British were actually not great at providing for black people either. And so then a few years into that, they moved to Sierra Leone. Like 300 black Americans who are now living in Nova Scotia went to Sierra Leone, and they were held under colonial rule by the British there. And so when Harry Washington was 60 years old, he took up arms against England to fight for his freedom in Sierra Leone. And he was caught, and he was exiled from Sierra Leone, and that's the last record of him as a 60-year-old man fighting for his freedom. Harry Washington, pretty good Washington. George Washington and all his slaves, they were hanging outside down by Tom Sawyer's cave when Henry exclaimed, George, sometimes you can be kind of a dick. And George put down his pipe and he picked up his whip, he said,
fine, fine, fine. It's fine, you've got me this time. I'm yours, but you'll always be mine. Together till the end of time. I was born rich, 3/4 Protestant, with connections at Harvard and a wonderful work ethic. But when you walk on by on the cobblestones, with your high heel shoes and your face in your phone and your glass of wine and your beautiful friends, I just hope and pray that the world will end. Oh, if God was a douchebag on the 33rd floor, smoking fake cigarettes in a bathroom with a transparent door, could I fall on my knees? Could I sing hallelujah? Would he smile at me? Could I turn to him and say, fine, fine, fine. It's fine, you've got me this time. I am yours, but you'll always be mine. Together to the end of time. George Washington and all his friends, they were dying in the snow, they were praying for the end. When George, he turned to camera 3, he was looking right at me. He said, we're not dying for your love, son, we're dying to be free. And I know that freedom falters when it's built with human hands. But here's the sword my friends have given me. I have got no other plan. I said, George, I am sorry. I have treated you unlike my mother taught me. And in this distance, where I live like a pharaoh, I can claim that my life's on the straight and narrow. But I'm grateful that my great, great, great grandfather fought in the fields and escaped from the slaughter. And I'm grateful that my great, great, great grandmother worked her own fields and left them to her daughters. And when my grandfather went out in the clubs, he was greeted with kindness, he was greeted with love, with his beautiful family. He could go wherever he pleased, find a pillow for his head, wipe the dust off his feet. Or if you write it all down and you read real careful, I can tell that my life's more Zanzinger than Carol. When I was born, I was wrapped in a sheet, I was laid in a crib, and the first time that I went to sleep, from the walls of the room in that hospital so wide came the ghosts of my family. They were great forms of light, and some of them are bloody, and some of them are clean, and they lay their hands on my head, and they started to sing. they say. Fine, fine, fine. It's fine, you've got me this time. I'm yours, but you'll always be mine. Together till the end of time. Smokey Robinson song. Well, I got a little way over there on the mountainside, and I know that's where I should be. Don't you know I got a little way over there across the river wide? I can hear her calling to me. She's calling my name, so sweet and so plain. I can hear her saying, come to me, baby. Come to me, baby. They tell me that the river's too deep and it's much too wide. Now you can't make it over to the other side. But then I gotta get there and hold her in my arms just one more time, like I did before when she was mine, all mine. 'Cause I can hear her saying, come to me, baby. I'm gonna wait. Come to me, baby. I'm gonna stay. Come to me, baby. I'm gonna get to you. Come to me, baby. No matter what I have to do. Come to me, baby. Ooh, 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 ooh. They tell me that the river's too deep and it's much too wide. No, you can't make it over to the other side. One more time, like I did before when she was mine. 'Cause I can hear her saying, come to me, baby. I'm gonna wait. Come to me, baby. I'm gonna stay. Come to me, baby. Because the river ain't deep enough, the mountain ain't steep enough to keep me from your side. Ah, yeah, 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 yeah. Your skin a little. Julie, we can barely see you.
Oh,
Julie. And if you guys could just grow 6 inches up. Sorry.
going to do one last song. I'm going to turn on some music and we'll hang out in the chat and we'll hang out and we'll say hi to everyone. So yeah, stick around. There's the last performed song, but you're welcome to hang out. If you didn't win something, I apologize. You can still donate to. You can still join the still join the Riveters.
You can still join.
Giving
You
circle.
can still join.
Yeah. If you lost to someone, you can just offer to buy it off them. Anyway. Thanks, Arizona. Thanks for being fundamentally decent. And fuck the people that aren't fundamentally decent.
Where's the fire? Let it burn. Where's the children? Our children, you gotta learn. I tell you why. When I beat up myself, oh, please don't cry. You're crying, it ain't gonna help. Where we going? Where you taking me? If you want it, you know you can set me free. I tell you why. But I'm having problems with my words. If I could fly, I'd beat the shit out of some birds. I remember when we were pretty young, where we often run together till the setting of the sun. Oh, you swore we were friends forever, so before you run and hide, just tell me, are you gonna take my side? Are you gonna take my side? Are you gonna be on my side, left side? Are you gonna take my side? What's the difference? If I'm wrong, keep on asking. We'll never get along. I tell you why. But you probably figured out yourself. Oh, you're so wise. You best put that book back on the shelf. I remember when we were pretty young, where we often sing together till the rising of the sun. Oh, you swore we were friends forever, so before you run and hide, just tell me, are you gonna take my side? Are you gonna take my side? Are you gonna be on my side or that side? Are you gonna take my side? I remember when we were pretty young, well, we often sing together till the rising of the sun. Oh, you swore we were friends forever, so before you run and hide, just tell me, are you gonna take my side? Are you gonna take my side? Are you gonna be on my side or that side? Are you gonna take my side? Oh, you know that I would die if I come and saw you not on my side. Tell your mother, take my side. Tell your father too, oh, take my side.
Thank you, everyone. We love you. Thanks for being here on the little screen there. Bye.